What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Sports Science Excel. This is episode 9, and today we're going to go over relative and absolute cell referencing. Okay, so I want to start down here just to get a grasp of what the cell referencing is referring to. There we go. So if you look here, let's say we want to duplicate this box over here, okay? So I'm just going to hit equal that cell. And if you look up here, you can see how it says equal column G row 28, but there's no dollar signs included in this formula up here, okay? Which means that it is a relative reference. So what does that mean? That means that if we drag this formula to the right, the reference is also going to drag to the right. Okay? So now if I double click, you can see that that's highlighted. Because relative to cell, it knows that it's calling from a cell that's 1, 2, 3, 4 cells to the left of it. Okay? And then now if we take these and drag them down, we'll duplicate this exact same area, okay? So, how can this change? Well, if we come here and let's say we select that cell, but we want to be able to, we want this column to adjust and be relative on the row but absolute on the column. So if we want it to remain within column G, then we'll come up here, and if we put a dollar sign in front of that, that means that the column is now absolute, but the row is relative. So what's that going to look like? So that means if I drag it to the right, it's going to remain as a 1, okay? Because the column is locked and therefore it cannot drag this way. But if I bring it down, then we're going to duplicate this row, this column, this area here, okay? Because we know by our formula that it has to stay within column G. We cannot get outside of column G with no matter if we drag to the left or right, up or down, okay? So now, if we do that same thing, let's see, but we put the dollar sign in front of the row, then now we know that we have to work within row 28, but the column can adjust left or right, okay? So if I drag this now to the right, it'll adjust, but if I pull it down, it's going to stay 1, 2, 3, okay? So that's because we have to work within this row. We know that no matter which way we drag it, it's going to, this is an absolute reference that will remain, okay? And then let's just do this. If we were to do dollar signs in front of the row and the column, we drag it over, ones all the way across, drag it down, ones. Why is that the case? It's because it's an absolute cell reference that's no matter what is calling from the same cell, okay? So we can double click, see that that's highlighted there, just as it will be here, okay? All right, and just so you know, if you come up here on a cell formula and you select F4, it'll toggle through the absolute and relative cell references. So this, if you hit F4 now, the column and row is locked, hit it again, now the row is locked, hit it again, column's locked, and now it's relative cell referencing. You can toggle through Okay, whichever one you want, so you don't have to manually type in the dollar sign, okay? It's a very useful tip. So if we come here, now knowing what we do, if we come to total wellness, and all we need to do is sum these values, okay? Double click, we can see that that's sums each value. We know that if we drag this formula down, we need the formula to follow, because relative to the selected cell, it needs to sum those values to the left of it, if that makes sense, okay? So just as you see here, now these cells or these references are relative. So we should be okay to drag them straight down. See how that worked? And now if you double click, it calls from those cells just perfectly. Now you could come in here and let's see, and lock the column just for safety purposes if for some reason it got dragged over, but it still should work if you drag it down. Perfect. Okay, but just for the sake of explaining it, if you were to lock the row and then came and dragged it down, you see that it'll all be 17s. You select here and it's still calling from that top row, okay? Which is not what we want. Okay, good there. Okay, but there are times when we do want to call from an absolute, or we do want to use absolute cell referencing. For example, here we might have this location where this cell is reflecting their max lift. Okay, they're 1 RM, and we now need to create percentages for their programming, and we can't have that reference be relative, because if it is, then when we drag it down, what's going to happen? Well, now it's calling from this cell and there's nothing available for it to call from, okay? So if we look here, there is a formula that's just pulling a percentage. You can see 50% of their max is 100 pounds, okay? So again, simplicity, just keeping it simple, and hoping that this is something you'll be able to gain from. So if we take this formula and we need this cell reference to be absolute, but for the percentage we need that to be relative, okay? Again, I'm just going to lock the column, keep the row relative because I'm going to be dragging down. I need that percentage value to follow along with me. So if I drag this down, it should pull more. Okay, perfect. So we can see here, actually let's do this, click up here. So now it's pulling 110% of their max lift, which is 200 pounds in this case. So learning the difference between relative and absolute cell referencing is a very valuable tool, and there are many times when you'll need your cell references to be relative and many times when they'll need to be absolute. I highly recommend using the F4 key to toggle through and toy with it, see what works for you, what doesn't, where you can use it, and where relative and absolute reference may benefit you most. And learning how to do that will eliminate you having to come to this cell and type in this formula, okay? So now learning how to pull and drag and making sure that it does so in the correct manner that you need it will help really save time and allow you to be more efficient, and in turn allow your athletes to be more efficient in their training as well. So I hope you learned something from this. Thanks for tuning into this video. We got more videos coming up, so stay tuned. All right, we'll see you in the next video.